So for today, it's a review day. Just a plain old-fashioned pure review day, but we have learned a lot of stuff. So let's just see if you remember this. 75 went to 15, went to 3. That is not subtracting something. So therefore, it must be like multiplying by something. Hint is multiplying by a fraction. What do you do to figure out what that fraction is? You all would have lost a point on this one.
15 divided by...
Ooh, somebody's got it. This divided by this, that is correct. If you have your calculator with you, take it out. I'm realizing that having you doing it on your iPad is a big mistake because then you won't know how to do it on the test. So, iPads cannot be used for calculating on this. You'll either have your calculator or you need to come up and borrow one. I'm going to pause while people swap out a cell phone or their keys or something for a calculator. All right, so R equals, that's the common ratio. And I don't want you to feel like I'm just picking on you, so I'll use Dice of Destiny here. See who I'm supposed to call on. Row 1, person 5. Mr. B, that's you. So David, what do you get? 15 divided by 75 was not 5. Try it again. Just divide them. Yes? 0.2. All right. 75 divided by 15 is 5. You just had it backwards, Mr. B. All right. So 0.2 is our R. Now you have to write in a little equation. U1 equals UN equals. See if you can finish it. This is like a test question. This is how you write those little equations. Amir, what is U1 equal to?
75.
And then UN equals what always comes next? You know what?
U in parentheses and
Minus.
minus 1.
Yes, good. And now it depends whether it's arithmetic where you added something or if it's a common ratio because you multiplied by something. This obviously was a common ratio, so I'm putting in parentheses a 0.2. How many of you had that before I said it? Okay. So that's how you write one of these equations. It's called a recursive equation. U1 equals 75, they're saying what to start with, and this is saying that any random term is given by the term in front of it times by 0.2. All right. Now that I coached you, this one should be easy. Write me an equation for that. All right, we're going to go with Vivian. U1 equals what?
1.
And UN equals U parentheses N minus 1. How many of you had that right? Okay, you got to have U sub N minus 1. Otherwise, you're not doing a recursive sequence. Then it says either add, subtract, multiply, or divide something right here. So let's see, Aben, what should we do on this one? Are we like adding something each time?
Looks like it.
What do you think we're adding each time? Well, plus 2.
Plus 2, then plus 1.
1, and then what's
plus
this?
3,
That's kind of all over the place. What's that one?
plus 4.
Plus 4. All right, well, that definitely was a fail. There is no common anything. So this is not geometric and it's not arithmetic. So it's called a neither. All right. So let's do one more that actually makes sense. And I'm going to have you write it for this instead. Just you can keep the same stuff here. We're just going to have to put a number there. So I'm going to give you one that's a real typical one for a test. Teachers love 1/2. So we take 20 and then we cut it in half is 10. And we cut it in half and it's 5 and dot, dot, dot. So the U1 is 20. And the u sub n minus 1 is timesed by 1/2 or 0.5. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. All right, next page. So we're doing a little recap of the unit so far. And then on the last part of class, we're going to do this thing called the top 20, first 20. We did half of it the other day, and now we're going to do the other half. All right, so this is a review day, so you should know that this sequence starts with a 5, and that something happens to it each time. Can you tell me the first 3 terms? What, comma, what, comma, what? And it keeps going, but what are the first 3 terms? Now, some people get confused, like, well, it can't be that easy to put the 5 here. It is that easy. The first term is a 5. So, figure out the next one. What's that 2 doing in front? That is called a shifted geometric. It's multiplying it by 2, and then it's subtracting 1. That is a double whammy. So what is 5 times 2? It's 10. 10 take away 1? 9. To get the next one, you go 9 times the 2, 18 minus the 1, 17. That was a tough one. See how that worked? Times by this, subtract that. Now, I really wish they would have put this in parentheses because we've been telling you to put them in parentheses, so they really should have that in parentheses. All right. Then here's our little list. Let's say that I have had a lot of kids go like, which formula do I use? Well, it depends. Do you want arithmetic? Then you want one of these 2. Do you want the kind that's a sum? Then you use that. Why don't you on your sheet, and remember, I want everybody to have a sheet that you take notes on. Underneath this, write sum. Because these are a sum. They're like, you add them all up. And we should write sum here too. And this is also a sum. The ones that are S's are sums. Oh, so this is a sum too. But do you see the little infinity sign? The little infinity sign right here, that means that we're adding up an infinite number of things. You can do that. It's weird, but you can do it. So let's talk about the infinity kind. The only way you can do it is if it's just a geometric. See how these are the geometric ones? If it's a geometric one, then you can add up sums to infinity, but it's only if it's a shrinking geometric. Like 20, then 10, then 5, then 2.5. I sometimes forget which examples I did in which class. Did I tell you the one where I start 20 feet away from the door? I mentioned that? Okay. So then my first step, if I was 20 feet away from the door, would have been to go 10 steps, or 10 feet. So if I'm here, about 20 feet from the door, then if I add up all of these little fractions, I go 10 feet to the door, and then I go 5 feet, and then I go 2.5 feet, and I'm going half, 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 half. That's an infinite number of halves, but it will add up to something. So I use that formula. And it's U1. You can look it up just as easy as I can. That's right on the sheet. U1, and then, Vivian, what's on the bottom of that formula?
1 minus R.
1 minus R. Okay, good. So let's fill in what U1 is. Riker, what's U1? 10. What's R, Riker?
0.5.
Yep, our R was, it was cutting in half each time. So then it's 10 over 1 minus a half, which is a half. And if you haven't learned this by now, this is going to come up over and over and over. When you divide by a fraction, you got to flip and multiply it. So I'm timesing by 2 over 1. See how that works? So then it's 20. So the sum to infinity is 20, and that makes sense. I was 20 feet from the door. Of course, I'm going to get to the door, and your total is going to be 20 feet. The thing that messes with your head is that it's an infinite number of decimals that get added together, and yet you still get a whole number of 20. All right. This page. This has pluses in between. Do you get that this is one of the sums? All right, look on your little half sheet. I'm gonna go grab one myself, so I have one in front of me. Figure out which one this is. There's only 3 kinds of sums. It's either arithmetic or geometric infinity. Do you get that we want S sub 14? So clearly we don't want to go to infinity. So take out the infinity formula and you're left with only 2 choices. Now you have to decide, is this arithmetic or geometric? And then there's 2 ones that have an S sub n in them. Those are sum formulas. If this is arithmetic, you use the arithmetic formula. If it's geometric, you use the geometric formula. All right. So we add 5 each time. Oh, I'm just asking. Are we adding 5 each time? I think we might be. Does 8 plus 5 equal actually 13? I think it does. So is this arithmetic? Raise your hand if you think it's arithmetic. You are correct. It's arithmetic. All right, so it's arithmetic. Then the S sub n formula is this one. Now, everybody that knows n, it goes in 3 spots. Riker, what's n? It's the number of terms we want, and it's on the page somewhere. 14. Everybody put in a 14 wherever there's an n. So S sub 14 is the sum of the first 14 terms, is 14 over 2, and then this is a 14 again. Wherever there was an n, put a 14. Your hand isn't moving. That means I can tell you're not writing. So stick the 14 right on top of the n. Mr. B, you need to flip your name tag up so that I can see your actual name there. So tilt it more so that it, and here, I'll get you a marker. Here, catch. Close. Draw over it and marker. Karima, tell me, what was the u sub 1? U sub 1. Don't overthink this. U sub 1, isn't that just the first number? U sub 1. Okay, so 3 goes right there. And then last but not least is D. Rena, what's the D?
5.
Why'd you know that?
Because it goes up by 5 each time.
Yep, this is the thing that's the D, so that's a 5. Now, it's just, can you put that all in a calculator? And I know there are some people that can, and there's some people that have more trouble than others. I'll just say it that way. So, please, take a moment, type this into your calculator, and be prepared to hold your calculator towards me as I walk past so I can see what you think it is. Now, if I were doing this in the right order, I would go start inside and I would do 13. Who needs to subtract 1 on a calculator? 13 times 5. That's what I would start with. So hint, start with 13 times 5 and then go from there. You don't go from left to right. You're just going to screw up the order of operations. Because the parentheses go first, and that whole thing is in parentheses. All right. Show me what you think it is. Hold it with your calculator. Thank you. Thank you. 2 people right, 3 people right. I know you're working on this, and you're working on this for right now. So come back to me, and you need to borrow a calculator. Give yourself one or something, and I'll deliver a calculator. Let's see what you got. You are right. You are right. At least we'll try it. So, what to start with is the 13 times 5, but then you add 2 times 6 is 6. So you gotta get started, and then add the 6, and then that 14 over 2. You stuck? Okay, that is correct. Have it in the calculator next time. All right, this is why I don't think you should put it in there. So start on the inside, which is 13 times 5. Then, I saw you're okay with this. Just the next time show me on the calculator. And then you add, see that 2 times 3? Add 16. Get it all over. Don't try to do it all in one. Okay, I get 7. Now we can times 5. Well, what you can do, right, this 14 over 2. So, what's your final answer? Did you have 497? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, good. All right. So this one's 497, and that's a sum. It was a arithmetic kind. This is the formula used for arithmetic kind. All right. Everybody go to this. It's kind of a light yellow page. This one is not cutting in half every time, but it is a ratio one. We started the hour with this. How do you tell what you multiply by? Trapnell?
5 divided by 80.
Close.
Or 20. I meant 20.
I think you meant that, yes. The one right next to it. So 20 divided by 80, or coincidentally, 5 divided by 20. They should do the same exact thing. So now S sub infinity. It's a formula on your sheet. Find the right formula, write it right here, and stick the numbers in. And get the answer. This time, I'm going to give you a partner specifically that I want you to show your calculator to when you are done. And if you have different answers, I want you to talk about what happened, like maybe see who's right, you know? Okay, so you guys are going to compare in a group of 2. You guys are going to compare in a group of 3. Davis, you're going to compare with Karima. David, you're going to compare straight across with Maya. You guys show each other in a minute. You guys show each other. You two show each other. You two. Okay. Nora and Amir. You guys show each other. You two and you two. It's okay to have a decimal answer. All right, see what you think it is compared to the kid next to you. You're both lost. It's okay. I'll show you in a minute. So if U1 is 80, I hope you put 80 here, divided by, and then what's the rate? 20 divided by 80, 0.25. So the rate was 0.25. So I would have done this first. And then I would have done 80 divided by, what is 1 minus 0.25? It's 0.75. And then I would have taken 80 divided by 0.75. Let's see what Siri tells me. What is 80 divided by 0.75? 106.6 repeating. Raise your hand if you had that. Nice. All right, on to this page. It's kind of light purple. It's our 5th out of 6 pages, and we are almost done. And then after that, your job is going to just be to do a little worksheet called the first 20. All right, S sub 25. Do you think on the sheet there's a chance that you might have an S formula? Well, of course you do. You got 3 of them. Does this look like they want us to do an infinite number of terms? No, they'd have to say infinity, so we'd throw that one out. There's 2 there's 2 sums left. It must either be arithmetic or geometric. At first you might think, oh, it's adding different thing each time, so it's not a real thing. No, it's multiplying by something. Yes, it's just times 2. So if it's times 2 each time, it's got a common ratio. So look for the for the S formula that has an R in it, because R times 2 means R equals 2. Find the right formula, write it out, stick in the numbers, and find the sum of the first 25 terms. I'll pause for a second. I'll give this a shot. Or is this a geometric kind? Yep, the one that has the R in it, right? So the formula says S sub n equals, can you read it to me? Yep.
Parentheses R, and then an N,
Yep.
minus 1,
All over.
and then all over R minus 1.
Excellent. Now we just have to know what R and N and U sub 1 are. Okay. Aben, what's U sub 1?
1.
Yep. It's right there, and it's 1. Put a 1 right there. And then R. Eli, what is R?
2,
To the power of what is N?
25.
And that also goes here, by the way. And that just tells us we're doing the sum of the first 25. And then I gotta do minus 1, and then the last thing is the R, which is a 2. I already knew that. So there. Now, can you put that in a calculator? That's the challenge. A lot of you are good and will have this. It's going to be really big. Really, really big. And we're going to show you how to translate your answer, which will probably be a gigantic number in scientific notation. But if I have to do 2 minus 1, that's really just 1. Do you really need to divide by 1? No, that doesn't really do anything. Dividing by 1 is kind of irrelevant. Do you really need to times by 1? Times 1 doesn't do anything. So really, you just got to do this. 2 to the 25th minus 1. What is 2 to the 25th power? It says 3.3 E7. Some of your calculators will do it that way. Some of you will write it all the way out, but this is what it should be. You take your 3.3 and you move the decimal over 7 spots. 3, 3, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 2. Period. Now I got to take away 1. That was just the 2 to the 25th. So if I take away 1, I just take 1 off of this. So it ends with a 1. I'm going to put some commas in. Rewrite my 5 that got really wonky. 33,554,431. Now, if yours just says, mine just says 3.3, it's because you didn't move the decimal over. How many of you had the right answer this time? Cool. All right. Then, I think we are ready. And the last thing we're going to do is a review of the basic 20s. So I'm going to do this with you right now. You need a blank notability doc. So everybody get out of this and get a blank notability doc. And I'm going to just remind you of a few algebra basics. And then for the last half of class, you're just going to finish the first 20. All right. One of them is this easy. Here's 2 points. What's the slope? Now, I know we haven't done a slope problem in a long time, but that's why I'm reminding you to keep it fresh. When your brain learns something, you have it for a day. If you don't practice it within 24 hours, then you're going to lose it. And then by then, I don't know, I'd say we are 3 months away from having done a slope question. Probably half of you have completely forgotten how to do it. But if I remind you right now, now it'll stick again for another month or 2. So you got to go back and keep revisiting these important things. Who remembered that it was 7 minus the 3? Raise your hand if you knew that. Awesome. If you didn't know that, write this down. 7 minus the 3 over... Graham, what's the other part? 5 minus the 2. 7 minus 3 is 4. 5 minus 2 is 3. 4/3 was the slope. That means if you were going to go from here to here, you would rise 4 and run 3. That makes sense? Remember the rise over the run thing? That's what that is. All right, so that's one of your 10 little facts, but unfortunately they get harder. So here's another one. Does anybody remember the first thing you're supposed to do with a quadratic? Boy, this has been a while. You are in Algebra 2, but we haven't touched quadratics for probably 2 months. The first step, everybody put a -7 on both sides because we're setting it equal to 0. Does that ring a bell at all? You have to set them equal to 0. So get it the same as mine. And now, if you can factor it, you should. It's such a big deal that it's on my wall. Thank you to Nick, who made that for me with his class. If you can factor it, you should. So, try to factor it. So, you should be able to go, well, that's x and x, and then, is it 2 pluses? Or is it a plus and a minus? Think it through. It's got to be a plus and a minus. Because we have to multiply to make -2. So there has to be a negative in it. Okay. So Rena, how do you multiply to make a 2? Because these two spots have to multiply to make a 2.
2 and 1.
It's got to be a 2 and a 1. All right, and if I want an answer to come out positive, shouldn't I make the 2 bigger? I'll make the 2 positive, and I'll make the 1 negative. How do you know if you're right? You check the outside and the inside. I got 2x, I got -1x. That does make x. Yay, I factored it. So what was the first step? Get rid of this number so you can set it equal to 0. So you subtract that from both sides, okay? But what if it won't factor? This one factored. So yay, I got my answers. -2 and +1. But the one you get later, it won't factor. I'll give you one that doesn't factor. For example, x squared plus 3x plus 4. That does not factor. You might think it does. It does not. You can try all these different ways. It doesn't factor. Even though I've got it set equal to 0 and I got my little thingy set up, you could try all day long and there's nothing that would work. So you got to use the quadratic formula on your little top 20 thing here in a second. X equals negative, how does that start again? B plus or minus the square root of b squared and then what? -4ac all over 2a. That is the biggest formula that you get expected to memorize in the high school. You got to know that one. It's going to come up if you decide to go to college, even if you decide not to be in a math-related field, if you just are going to be like an art major, that's one formula they're going to expect you to know. Because you got to pass in college, many people don't know this, you have to pass one, even if it's a low-level math class. So maybe yours, for some of you, it's going to be calculus because you want to be an engineer. You'll have to know this. For some of you, it's going to be like, no, I just want the lowest math class that gets credit in college. And that's going to be probably called college algebra, which is kind of like this class, except way harder. That's like the lowest level college class. It's like this class, but way harder. And guess what? This is in this class. My point, memorize it. You have to know this one. It's also on the ACT. So if you're going to take the ACT to try to get into a better college, you should know this formula. Okay, so how do I use it? Well, there's an A and a B and a C. That's A, but there was no number there. Do you get that there's actually a 1 there then? And that's B, and that's C. So there's A, there's B, and there's C. And you just stick them in to this. And let's not even finish it. You'll have an answer that's got a square root on it at the end. And that's another topic. 3 plus and minus the square root of, let's say, 27. Actually, let me see how hard I made these this time. Oh, yeah, okay. These are a little nicer than that. The square root of 27 would have been root 9 and root 3, so that's 3 root 3 all over 6. That is a typical question on today's top 20. And you know what people want to do? They want to cancel off the 3's and the 6. And it's not quite that easy. Because, once again, if you can factor it, you should. This top can factor. You want a chance on the ACT? Gotta know this one too. 3 factors out. Can you do it? I know everybody can make this 6 into 3 times 2. Everybody can do that. But can you factor the top? That's the hard part. Dash, what do you think we put in the parentheses? I'll give you this hint. There's a plus minus here, so there must be a plus minus in the middle of it. A 1, yes, because then it's like a placeholder. If you divide this by 3, you get 1. If you divide this by 3, it'll tell you what to put. You see how these 3's will cancel? There's your answer. Now, I know some of you, this is just going to be too hard. You'll never get it. Just some of you, this is going to be too hard. But I think some of you, just look at this. That isn't that hard. Like 6 is 3 times 2. That's easy. Can you factor that top part? Because if you can get this far, it's easy. If you think you're going to take pre-calc next year, oh, you're going to be doing this all the time. So that cancels that. And there's your answer. See how simple it is from there? Once you get that factored, you're just canceling 2 things. The end. All right. Cool. Now, I have one more easy thing I want to help you with, and then we'll see if you can figure out the rest of it. If I give you an equation like x squared plus 2x plus 1, and then I said, I want f of 3, this is f of x, didn't I just tell you to stick in 3? Isn't that what this means? If you're not ready for that, I can say the problem that way, x equals 3. Instead of f of 3, I could say x equals 3. Do you get, you just stick a 3 in here and here. That's all that means. So what's the answer? Y equals 9 plus 6 plus 7. 16 is correct. When you stick in x is 3. All right. So, your job is take this. I'm going to call out your names. You're going to come up and get yours. And finish. Because you already did 1 through 10. Now I want you to do 12 through 20. And I get you're not going to rock them all. Just get as many right as you can now that we practiced a little bit. All right. So, if you don't get one by the end, that means you weren't here the first day. I'll give you a blank one and you can just start it. And your job is to take this home and finish it. Okay, this worksheet right here. There's nothing else. Just finish this. That's all I got for you for today.